All right, brilliant. Well, welcome back to another episode of Legal Unicorns here in Cape Town this week. Thank you for joining. And today, this afternoon, I'm joined by the fantastic Shabnam Sablay Parker, who joins us, who is an attorney specialising in corporate commercial law and governance, and is currently the Group Chief Compliance Officer for Forbes. So welcome, Shabs, if I can call you Shabs.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Rob. Great to be here.
Brilliant. Well, look, I mean, for the sake of the listeners tuning in, we are getting to know each other on a personal basis as well, in the sense that our kids go to the same school, and we've been chatting about business and events and lots of other things, which has been fantastic to get to know you. But I think from a professional perspective, you've got a very inspiring journey, one that I know a lot of our listeners can learn from. And you know, obviously the purpose, as I've said, of the podcast is to shine a light on the people behind the LinkedIn profile almost. You know, they'll see, you know, younger lawyers and compliance and finance professionals will see someone like you, and they'll be, you know, they'll be worried about the group compliance, you know, director title, and they'll look and, you know, who is this incredibly impressive person and professional? And it's nice to show the real person behind that as well. So again, thanks for joining us. And if I can start you off, you know, just tell us a little bit about you and your background and how, you know, how you got here, as it were.
Absolutely. So, Rob, I'm a homegrown Cape Townian girl. Absolutely love it here. I think growing up for me, I remember watching LA Law as a kid with my dad. You know, I grew up in a very communal setting, lots of cousins. We spent lots of time together. And growing up, you know, when you're playing the game around what you'd like to be when you grow up, for me, it was absolutely always being a lawyer. So I think from a very, very tender age, I had that vision. And so, yeah, it's been an incredible journey for me, an absolutely rewarding one. And I think the vision of being, you know, an attorney from a very young age was absolutely there.
Yeah, I mean, you manifested it clearly. And it's obviously taken a bit of a few directions since then, and we'll get into that. But in terms of being, you know, as you say, growing up in Cape Town and being a Cape Townian, whereabouts did you grow up? Northern suburbs, southern suburbs, town?
So, southern suburbs in the Crawford area.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So a big family, lots of cousins, and your dad?
Absolutely. So my dad was the eldest of 7 brothers. He's got 2 sisters, and we spent every Friday and Sunday together as, you know, a group of cousins and family, and so a very communal setting. Wow.
7 brothers, one of 7, and two sisters. So yeah, a lot of uncles and aunts and cousins, and I guess, you know, all growing up a similar age, and it's irreplaceable, really, isn't it? You know, that sort of family setting.
Yeah. What's that saying? It takes a village to raise a kid. So that's how we grew up.
Yeah. I think I might have mentioned this to you before, but it's one of the reasons why my wife and I moved here from Hong Kong, was because her siblings and mum and dad all live within the city bowl, and there's so many cousins, and I myself grew up with my cousins, and you just that relationship is just so important for kids. And you had it yourself, and I love the reference to LA Law as well. I mean, that is exceptional. I was saying earlier as well, it's one of those things where we often ask people how they, you know, what really sort of stimulated that you know, idea of being a lawyer, and it's often falls into the camp of either the mum or dad. A TV show is often the winner. I mean, we had a guest on the other day, Ruth Gondwe from Malawi, and she said that it was actually the movie Legally Blonde that made her want to be a lawyer, which is great. But it's amazing that you see it and you think, that's what I really want to do.
Yeah, in fact, Reese Witherspoon's classic color in that movie was this absolute light pink.
This is it. There you go. Elle Woods, she makes a comeback again. Yeah. Cool. So you grew up in Cape Town. Did you study in Cape Town as well?
I did. Yeah. So quite unusual for me, Rob, because growing up, as much as it was absolutely wonderful in the community, having all my cousins, it was very different. So in the sense that from a cultural perspective, I grew up seeing traditionally men, my father, my uncles, being career focused, being entrepreneurs and really providing for the family, whereas, I didn't have a single female figure that was, very much honed in on career. So typically, the females in the community was really focused on being more, nurturing, and home executive was really the norm. And so for me, also being the eldest of 4 siblings, I really had to envisage and steer my own path. So, having that vision of being a lawyer and building a solid career in terms of the legal profession was really something that I had to charter and steer. So with all the benefits was also a bit of challenge in that I really did have to take a step back from the cultural norm and steer my own path.
How was that? Was that accepted? Was that okay with mum and dad and
It was absolutely
aunts and uncles?
but I was absolutely blessed in the sense that I was overwhelmed with support and with love. It was also a generational thing at the time. It gave me the opportunity to influence and inspire my younger cousins who have since gone on to establish careers themselves.
Younger female cousins.
Correct.
Oh, well, I mean, I suppose genders, but but yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I suppose that is something that is often not understood by other cultures as well. Is when there are those, dare I say, relatively strong cultural norms within a community. It's nice to hear that you had the support. You clearly had the determination and the will, and your parents and your cousins, your aunts, uncles would have seen. Okay, well we have to support this. It's a new world, and let's give her the support. But then you can inspire the younger cousins in your family who then go, well, I want to do what she's doing. I can do it. And you say you're one of the oldest of 4.
Correct, and actually very close to home in my immediate household. So just to your point, Rob, I think I've always been known to be the tenacious one. Yeah. So that's been there from the get-go. But I've got a brother just 2-3 years younger than I am, who also followed, suit in studying law. He also worked for one of the top-tier law firms, and today is a legal manager in the corporate and the regulatory space for PepsiCo. So
cool.
Very close to home. I do definitely like to think that I've inspired, the younger generation.
Yeah, you have. And this podcast as well will do the same. There's lots of people that will be watching it and looking and seeing, looking around their family, or maybe those, there'll be some that are getting support, there'll be some that aren't getting support. But it's interesting for them to be able to see your journey. So you went to UCT, right?
Yes.
So, yeah. Good university, tough. Did you study at LLB or?
I did. So it was important for me to get into a university that had international recognition. So UCT was always on my radar. I must be honest, sort of getting into, I only excelled in terms of my academic success later on in my journey. And typically at university. So getting onto the Dean's Merit List was absolutely important for me because I knew I needed to and wanted to get into a top-tier law firm. And so surrounding myself with best in class for me was really important. I wanted to feel like I was really in an environment where, the bar's raised really high, and I believe that would sort of motivate and inspire me to do my best. I also think that it opens up a world of opportunities for you. But yeah, not an easy journey, Rob. So I think that if I reflect on my primary school career in particular, it was an absolute challenge for me. I was born with congenital cataracts. So
Yeah, you mentioned it briefly before.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, I mean, what does that mean?
It means your vision is absolutely blur. So at the age of 4, my dad noticed it because I would literally sit not on top of a TV, but basically inside the TV. And
my
obviously,
son was the same.
You pick it up at school, your teachers pick it up, I mean, little things like being able to peel a sticker or something.
Do you remember?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
it was at the age of 4. Yeah.
And everything was blurred?
Absolutely.
Wow. navigating life as a youngster.
Navigating life, not easy, because also I had to wear spectacles that was obviously of a very thick concentration. So,
Yeah,
you know,
no,
being
probably, yeah.
being teased in my primary school career endlessly. So needing to develop the personal resilience to deal with that, and to, no matter what, just like be steadfast in my vision and what I wanted to achieve from a very tender age was something I always had to take on. And to be honest, I never saw it as a setback, because I've got two girls aged 9 and 7, and what I keep teaching them, for me, massively important, is to always be the master of your own destiny. So never to see a setback as something that will hold you back, but to rather, you know, despite that, make it work, push harder, and do your absolute best.
Well, I mean, lucky for us, both you and I, your daughters and my daughter are at the same school, and
Yes.
lucky for us, that they teach the same values, right?
Yes.
You know, the one thing that we've discussed before, you and I, is that, you know, it seems to be that we've got the girls in the school that follow the same path, you know, the life lessons that we teach at home, which
Absolutely.
is nice. But I'm just wondering about you. So, I mean, obviously, we're talking. So, 4 years old, you've got this congenital issue, and then, you know, and you know, without going too deep into it, South Africa was a very different place.
Absolutely.
You know, and you know, I'm guessing your father, your mum and dad would have had to really, like, they would have struggled to get you the right treatment as well. And it would have, I'm guessing it was quite a long journey, was it, to getting you
Absolutely.
fixed?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a couple of heroes in my life. Dr. Asher Sachs was long retired, but definitely one of them. So he was a leading ophthalmologist at Christian Barnard at the time.
Yeah.
And obviously
Hospital
with
in town, yeah.
some of our dark history, it wasn't easy for my parents to get, you know, the best quality medical care. Despite that, you know, and why I say a couple of heroes in my life, you always get the individual that will take on no matter what. So I was taken on as a patient by a leading ophthalmologist, and again, the benefit of a community. Everyone in the community supported from just a finance perspective, from a support perspective. And so again, I never saw myself as sort of disadvantaged, in the sense that despite all the odds, I had a leading ophthalmologist. At the age of 4, he removed my cataracts, and I saw him every 3 months. In fact, he named a teddy bear after me. And so seeing Dr. Asher Sachs every 3 months, and, you know, growing up, he always said to my parents that the day there's a concentration of a contact lens where I don't need to go to primary school wearing very thick spectacles, he will make sure that we get it across to South Africa. I'll never forget, I was in, and now I'm going to really give away my age, but we called it Standard 1, which is grade 3.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget a call from Dr. Asher Sachs saying to my parents that he found a concentration that will really, you know, allow me to not wear spectacles. It was imported from Germany. And yeah, it was life-changing.
How old were you about then?
Standard 1, sure. I'm not sure. How old are you in grade 3?
Okay. Grade 5, as in she's 10, so okay, 8, yeah, okay, about 8, 7 or 8.
7
yeah,
or 8.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was life-changing for me. I mean, of course, I needed the support in getting it in and out every day, which my mom did. But
the getting the contacts
lenses.
in, yeah.
But it was life-changing for me. I mean, from the age of 4, wearing really thick spectacles to
Yeah.
being able to go to school and feel like a normal kid. I think for me also, you know, Dr. Sachs always said, when your eyes developed at the age of 18, medical science, everything would have evolved, and we'll do a permanent lens implant. So my first year at UCT, that's exactly what happened. So again, I sit here feeling incredibly privileged and blessed to have had that journey.
And was Dr. Sachs doing the operation?
The same ophthalmologist at the age of 4 that did my permanent lens implant at the age of 18. So, and it's been a huge success. So.
On journey, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you can see. I mean, that's such a challenge, though, and such formative years as well. You know, I can only imagine. Like, you know, yeah, I can only imagine what you know what you had to go through, but also. Yeah, the way you describe the community pulling together as well, and Yeah, and look, yeah, again, I won't go on about it too much, but South Africa was a very different place then, and like you said, you sort of alluded to there, the difficulty of getting the right treatment would have been. But it sounds like your parents obviously didn't give up either. Like,
Yeah, I get my tenacity somewhere.
yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like both of them,
Yeah.
which is that's really cool. I mean, because it's clearly defined, had a big impact on who you are, and the way that you
Absolutely.
teach your own kids in terms of not being defined by the issues that they will face going through life. That's fantastic. So then you can see again, and then life is becoming a bit more normal, and then you say that. So at 18, when you first went to university, so you were,
Yes.
and you studied. Did you study philosophy first and then law?
Yeah,
Is that how it
so
works?
I did the combined stream. I did a BA in philosophy and languages, and they called it the accelerated stream. So doing your LLB simultaneously with the BA
Okay.
is what I did. And yeah, I loved it, Rob. Absolutely loved
Well,
it.
UCT's not a bad place either.
Not at all.
When you drive past it on the highway, you can see the beautiful buildings, and
Yeah.
it's great university, but yeah, I mean, you've obviously again that tenacity will be coming out. You want to work hard, you study hard, and then so then you graduate, and you're still focused. You want to be a lawyer.
Yes.
So, in terms of getting articles, was it easy? Was it hard? Where did you go? What did you do?
So my first year of university, I had lots of fun. I worked really hard in, I'd say, my last 2-3 years, because determined to get.
Oh,
onto
this is
the
what you meant by it became
Yeah.
later on. Yeah,
Came
yeah.
later on.
We've all
So
been there.
I loved the adventure and the fun, uni, all of that, and then also honed into work
You can
really
see.
hard.
You're like, I'm going to go out.
And then also, Rob, it was for me about getting onto the Dean's Merit List so that I could actually get into a top-tier law firm. And I was very lucky. So, my first interview ENS offered me.
Yeah.
That's why I did legal articles and absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I mean, look, for those who are listening overseas and aren't aware, ENS is one of, if not the top law firm in the country. So, I mean, getting into that isn't easy. Like you say, they only take the best. They're one of the big five, and training there is, would have been hard work, but also, you're being trained to be one of the best lawyers in the country. So when you were doing that and going through the articles, it was quite often, I suppose, for lawyers who are doing their articles to start favouring a practice area. Was there anything that you would start drawing you in?
I had immediate inclination towards corporate commercial law, so contracting, mergers and acquisitions. I loved just being able to see a deal from, start to finish. We had an incredible suite of clients, so that entire experience really shaped where I wanted to specialize through the latter part of my career.
Yeah. It's interesting, yeah. I myself was drawn into the corporate sphere, just how business works, how things are structured. And It sounds like you had something similar, obviously, albeit from a law perspective. Now we're going to jump around a little bit because I've got a whole heap of questions I want to ask you. But in terms of, we've obviously touched on your, the formative years of you at school and the health issues, which obviously clearly Dr. Sachs is a hero and followed you on your journey. When you were at ENS and, and you were getting into this, were you starting to form an idea of where you wanted your career to go? What sort of, were there any sort of decisions you were making then you think may have shaped what you're doing now?
Yes, and quite a difficult one, in that as a law student, you work really hard to get into a top-tier law firm. That's where you land, and very early on in my career did I make the decision that actually I found an area that I'd love to specialize in, and that's outside of a law firm. And so working at ENS, it gave me the opportunity to interface with really large corporates, and I absolutely fell in love with the financial services industry. The main reason for that is that I felt that I could directly impact the client in working with them when it comes to financial well-being, peace of mind. So there was something quite special and impactful in seeing that process. I knew that I loved commercial, I loved M&A. And so leaving practice was a decision that I had to make quite early on in my career.
Yeah, you left and then went in-house, right? I mean,
correct. And so being in-house counsel from a legal perspective, from a regulatory perspective, that was really something that I targeted quite early on in my career.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big decision to make.
Yeah.
You know, because, you've never, I'm looking at your CV, LinkedIn profile now, and you've never gone back. So it is a big decision. It's not always available as well. I mean, I see more here in South Africa and other African countries. There's an early step into in-house quite often, but overseas we see, you don't normally go in-house until later on in life. But clearly you're very clear on where you want to go and the type of work you want to do, and like you say, the financial services side of things. So you moved to Allan Gray, right?
Correct.
Which, for those who don't know, is a fantastic investment company and one of the biggest in South Africa, and have their head office here in Cape Town.
Correct.
Yeah.
Loved my time at Allan Gray.
Yeah, you were there for a few years and then moved into, I mean, I said earlier, you've literally worked for the who's who of finance in Cape Town, Nedbank and Old Mutual, and it goes on, and then into the tech space later on as well, or tech, sort of more modern finance, shall we say? Yes. And all the way along, you're sort of edging. I can see you've got this natural, wonderful progression. But going towards that regulatory compliance space, which obviously is your home at the moment, is that deliberate? Is that something that you just found yourself more and more interested in that space?
Yeah, I find that, in the legal regulatory compliance space, it's such a rapidly changing environment. So I find that incredibly exciting. And I think no matter what your line of business is, in the corporate space in particular, understanding the parameters you're licensed to operate is actually what keeps your doors open. And so for me, being at the forefront of being able to ensure that I'm enabling that was really something that I found incredibly exciting and rewarding. So yes, it was very, very calculated.
I wonder if you ever had it. I mean, I remember a lot of my friends work in investment banking and hedge funds, and they're more front office. And there's always a love-hate relationship with compliance, because they always feel like you're stopping them from doing what they want to do. Yeah. But it's more, like you say, it's more actually of a facilitation. It keeps the doors open. Yeah. Just there's the parameters, guys. Yeah. Within that, do what you like. Yeah. Just don't step outside.
And Rob, it's incredibly interesting because I'm so passionate about having the world, and particularly the organizations that I interface with, see it in such a different lens. I think very much traditionally, compliance, legal would be seen as sort of like the watchdogs and like stopping deals from happening. And now it's very much seen as enabling, solution-orientated, partnering with the business to make things happen. And so, we've seen in the landscape such a shift in how legal and compliance in-house counsel is viewed.
Yeah, it is changing. Yeah, like I say, I mean, and depending on which side you talk to, but no, I mean, the in-house world, certainly in financial services, I have seen massive changes just from a career perspective, and you would have seen it. You're in it, but just going back a step, and I just noticed, a couple of things on here that you wrote that when we asked the question beforehand, just to think of a couple of things that and specific decisions and actions that you might have made in your career, you touched on. And I've met your husband briefly, Zunaid, yes. A fantastic guy, and a market leading businessman in his own right as well. But one of the decisions you would have made, and again, I know we're chopping and changing, we're going to go back and forth, but you mentioned about family planning as well, and that's a big thing for professional. I'm not speaking out of turn here, but I've worked with a lot of women over the years in a variety of countries, and it's something that is often discussed about, you know, how that fits in with one's career. And so how did you handle that? Because you obviously continue to build and grow a fantastic career, but also have a wonderful family as well.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, Rob. So certainly agree with you. I mean, Zunaid's consistently been my absolute pillar of strength, my cheerleader, always inspirational. Fortunately, and it again comes down to culture, we both saw things in a very similar light in that we made a very conscious decision, and it's a personal one because it's different for everyone,
Yeah.
but for us it worked. We made a conscious decision to delay family planning. And the main reason for that was that we wanted to have lots of fun. We wanted to study further. We wanted to travel lots. We wanted to really build a solid foundation in terms of our career and in terms of our life, you know, and then really start family planning. So again, it was very out of the norm from a cultural perspective. We were married for 7 years before we had Zoe, our firstborn, who's now 9. And 2 years later, we had our second girl. And so that was a conscious decision and something that we both actually very grateful for because it afforded us the opportunity to actually, you know, set ourselves up for success.
I think it's I'm not going to harbour on it all day, but for anyone out there that is listening to this and building a career, it is a really important topic, especially for the women that are listening. And it's something I was actually talking about this morning. What you've just mentioned, and my colleague won't mind me saying this, my colleague Keresha is also Muslim, but she's a lot younger than us. But she's married, and we were talking this morning, but it's just the two of us in the office. In fact, I'm going to go back there, and she's on her own at the moment. And we were talking about family planning, because obviously I'm about 20 years older than her and my kids are growing up, but she's married and she's thinking about it, and she's got cultural pressures and family pressures, but at the same time she's trying to navigate a career for herself as well. And it was interesting just listening to her and thinking, you know, you've got a challenge, you know, and the best thing I can do is, you know, her boss/colleague is to support her in whatever she chooses to do. But it's interesting when you touched on it there that you and Zunaid together clearly had the same idea and
Yes.
wanting to have your life as well. There's completely nothing wrong with that. You know, achieve your things in your own separate careers first to be, I suppose, even maybe so you have no regrets. When you look, I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but my wife and I, we had kids. So William, 35 I was. So Marie would have been 30, 31. So, you know, again, slightly later in life, certainly for me. But again, it was about, you know, wanting to not be able to look back and go, oh, if only we'd have done that and that kind of thing. I don't know if that's the sort of thing that you and Zunaid were talking about as well. It's like making sure that you'd done what you needed to do.
Spot on, Rob, exactly that. We also did the 4-year MBA, so we did 2 MBAs back to back, and so that we could be there to
you're
support.
real glutton for punishment.
So that we could be there to support each other through the journey.
Sorry, who went first?
I went first,
and then
Zunaid did his MBA, and then at the end of the 4 year...
See, they call that the divorce degree
They
as
do,
well, don't they?
and for us it was the absolute opposite, because we really embraced each other's journeys. We were warned that it's called the divorce course, and we're going to do this, and it was incredible. So, you know, I had my 2 years, he had his 2 years, and at the end of the 4 years we decided to do an exchange program before kids, and again we were only able to do that because, you know, we didn't have kids. And to be honest, for the longest time I had to question whether, you know, having kids was actually 100% on the table for me personally. And something that happened as part of the MBA process gave me this, you know, different lens and seeing things quite differently. So at the end of the 4 years, we had the opportunity to do an exchange program at the Indian School of Business in Hyderabad.
Oh, wow.
And we were surrounded by the smartest students working for the likes of Google and Microsoft. But they also had families, you know, they were absolutely career-focused, family-focused. And so seeing that in a different setting, having very similar cultural backgrounds, because our ancestors come from India, And being exposed to that showed that absolutely the juggle is intense, it's real, but it's so enriching to one's life. And so it was shortly after that journey actually that we started family planning, and that happened to be about 7 years after being married. So,
But there's other students or were showing you maybe that it is intense, but it can be done.
absolutely.
That's meant to be, isn't it?
Yeah.
Having that. Yeah, look, again, I mean, I won't harbour on it too much, but I spent a decade in Asia working with I remember doing an article for a law magazine. They asked me to do it was about 2010. Yeah, 2010. So yeah, about 14 years ago. And they asked me to do an article for them, but based on female partners. So I was like, okay. And I said, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a Q&A. I'm going to find the top 4 female partners in the country, in Hong Kong. Teresa Koh at Freshfields and a few others whose names escape me, sorry, at the moment. And I said, I'm going to turn the article into a Q&A and say, because younger female lawyers will be reading this, like, how did you get to the top? And how did you, and have a family? And it was all very similar. It was like this determination and this, and not not accepting what was the norm, and
Yes.
having a supportive husband, and
Yes.
and doing it as a team, and things like that. So yeah, it's great to hear that you've got that as well. And I've got to say that part of the working culture, or the glass ceiling as they used to call it back in the 90s, is so refreshing to see it not there anymore. Like you literally, it sounds with the right planning and the right support, one can have a fantastic career and a fantastic family.
Absolutely.
So, like I said, I'm not going to harbour on that, but I do think it's an important point because, like I said, the listeners will look at someone like you and go, how can I follow in her footsteps? You are a real inspiration for people coming through. They've just got to find themselves a Zunaid, so they've got a team. So they've got a teammate to do it with.
Teamwork makes for dream work.
This is it. They've got a good teammate. No, I often say about Marie, who you've met, my wife.
Yes,
She,
lovely.
sometimes you find someone who's on the same page. Right? You find that person, and that you want the same things, and that's that's a nice thing to have. Okay, so you are progressing through financial services. And one thing I wanted to talk about was when, what year is it? So it was a couple of years ago, you moved from Old Mutual, where you had a nice position, to Jumo World, which
Yes.
is a financial service provider. But it was a new thing then, a new company with heavy investment. What sort of drove that move? Because it's a lovely position, global head and regulatory compliance.
Yes.
But was there some element of risk going into a firm that was relatively new?
Yes.
How did you handle that?
There absolutely was. As you've touched on, Rob, I think Jumo being, at that point, it was very much a startup, so wholly dependent on investor funding. I loved their mission. It was around financial inclusion, it was around fintech, and it was an area in law and regulatory compliance that I knew absolutely nothing about. And after being at Old Mutual for 8 years in a very comfortable role and having really set up a solid track record, I thought that from a risk and, just where I was in terms of family planning, before kids, all of that, really wanted the opportunity to, for a point in time, and I actually put a time period to it. So again, quite calculated. I said, for 2 years, let me go and do something that's going to enhance my skill set, challenge myself, get me completely out of my comfort zone, but also afford me the opportunity to have Pan-Africa experience. So, dealing with regulators in Ghana versus Zambia versus Eswatini, every experience was absolutely different. And so it was really just wanting to hone in on something new, something fresh, something different, and being very mindful of the risks. So loved my journey there. It was incredible, very rewarding, very impactful to see the difference that it makes to Particularly, we focused on women,
Yeah.
microfinance to women who we're talking about subsistence where, you know, someone would set up a spaza shop to support 7 kids. And so it was something wild and different, and I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know Jumo, you know, as a company. I've never worked there, and we haven't worked with them, but they are here in Cape Town, or
Yes.
largely here in Cape Town. And I would implore anybody listening to this to check them out, because
Absolutely.
they do. Yeah, that sort of financial inclusivity, that element of focusing on people who really need it across Africa is fantastic.
Absolutely.
It's a real nice mission. So, but again, I'm getting this impression of you, of someone who, you know, you are wonderfully calculated, if I may say. Like you're taking risks, and you're pushing yourself, but you're doing it in a way that's quite deliberate, and it's nice. It's nice to see. It's very calculated is the wrong term. Deliberate is the right word. It's like it's sort of going. I want to have this 2 years where because. Let's go back a step. The easiest thing for you know, a professional like yourself, you're head of regulatory compliance at Old Mutual Wealth. Fantastic. You could be there forever. Let's be honest.
Yes.
You could keep going up the ranks, and it would be very comfortable. But you went, nah. I'm gonna spend 2 years. I'm gonna go into something that is a startup, effectively. I mean, albeit a well-funded startup, but still a startup, risky.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
you took it and you made it work. Amazing. Like that's a massive, especially in the compliance space, or those who move away from law into compliance. Again, you know, I'm not speaking out of turn here. Lawyers or legally trained people are often risk averse.
Absolutely.
You know, so for them to be able to see you take those deliberate moves is, you know, might be a raft of resignations once people start saying, she did it, I can do it. I might get myself in trouble here, but that's really amazing to see. And then you did the 2 years, and it almost to the T, almost. And then along comes an opportunity at Alex Forbes, a fantastic firm.
Yeah, absolutely love Alex Forbes. And it was interesting. So COVID, as much as it's had
of course,
hardships
in the middle of COVID, I keep forgetting.
and challenges, I was approached by Alex Forbes in the midst of COVID. And so the role was very much for a Joburg-based role, but due to COVID, they re-looked at their ways of working, which afforded me the opportunity to still be based in Cape Town. They have, Alex Forbes has a very future-fit, fresh way of looking at things, and an incredible degree of trust and just a collaborative approach in terms of working. So, yes, I'm based in Cape Town. Head office for us is in Johannesburg. I obviously travel quite a lot, but it's really been a phenomenal journey.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things I wanted to say on that point. Firstly, you know, it's nice to see again where the firms that handled COVID well. You know, 3 years prior, that job would have been. They said, Joburg, you can only have it if you're in Joburg, and you would have been made to consider having to move potentially. Whereas some of the firms like Alex Forbes were very forward thinking. Yes. And I've met some of your colleagues as well, yourself and others at our recent African GC Summit. And yeah, you're talking about people who really want to keep striving to be better.
Correct.
Really, really, really wonderful to see. And they obviously immediately embraced and thought, no, it's all about getting the right person and making that person work. So that's a nice thing to see. And I guess that's continued in the last couple of years. I guess it's kind of you're still with the firm that's really trying to be better and do things slightly different, well, in a different way, as it were. Just on that note, in terms of Alex Forbes, for those who don't know, they're an investment company, right? I mean, they're insurance. They do insurance.
Insurance, retirements, health, investments.
Yeah. Overseas as well, or just South Africa mainly?
So we've got Pan-African presence as well.
Yeah, yes, of course. We briefly talked off camera about Namibia and Botswana and some of the other growing markets. Again, I think there are a handful of firms that we come across, and Alex Forbes being one of them, that over the next couple of decades, as Africa just continues to expand, are really well set up. Right attitude, right people, right way of going about ever-changing environments, which no doubt we will face again. Hopefully not COVID again, but maybe
100%.
something similar. In terms of taking you back a step, and you've mentioned a couple of things, very pertinent things in terms of how your career and your life has been shaped. But is there anything else that you can think of that, in terms of notable moments, maybe in the workplace, that has really sort of driven some change, or anything that you think, oh, that was a defining moment?
Yeah, there's been a couple for me personally, Rob, but I think it's something you've just touched on, just, recognizing Alex Forbes as being very future fit in terms of their approach. But our leadership team is the most incredible in terms of just inspiring, setting the bar really, really high. And for me, that's incredibly important, surrounding yourself by strength, because I think that's really what allows you to continuously evolve, continuously challenge yourself. But the level of, for me, leading by influence, leading by example is really what sets firms apart from exceptional firms. And I've obviously, to your point, had the benefit of experiencing a few stellar companies.
Yeah.
And I think that I've also had the blessing of having the most incredible managers, leaders who, even after I leave an environment, they continue to be mentors, they continue to be friends. And so that's been really defining for me in terms of my career, as part of just surrounding yourself by an incredible bunch of people. But then on the flip side, unfortunately, this was sort of earlier on in my career, I also have had managers, maybe just, one or two, where, for the lack of a better phrase, just had bad manners. And I think,
We've all met them.
and even with that, what it's taught me is how never to lead, and manage people. And so even with that bad experiences, it was something positive that I could actually extract from that. But yeah.
Well, I mean, that, to unpack that, I mean, that says a lot about who you are as well, in that you have that positive mindset, that you, even out of negativity, you will take something positive out of it. I'm also the same. I think, there are people in the world who have negative experiences in the workplace, and they'll harbour on them, and they'll let them affect them and the future move. But you, like me, you'll take that in, internalise it, and realise what do I not want to be? Yeah. When I'm leading a team, what do I not want to be? And then also shape the type of company that you want to work for and be part of going forward.
Absolutely.
We often say, don't we? I mean, a lot of companies expect, and rightly so in many ways, a lot from their people. Well, then I'll give everything if it's true to my values. And I'm sure you're exactly the same. Now, in terms of, it's quite a leading question, but it's one obviously we've asked you here. But just in terms of the future for the legal and compliance field, let's broaden it a little bit. Do you think that? What do you think is probably the closest to changing? What is on the horizon sort of changing in that space that you can see?
Yeah, so definitely a drive to more of an outcomes-based approach. So really not billing a client per hour, but actually focusing on the outcome, and closely aligning. You spoke about values earlier on. Closely aligning, values to what's actually in the best interest of the client. So that's definitely more of a shift. We talk about treating customers fairly from a shareholder perspective, from a regulator perspective. There's an absolute focus and need from a conduct perspective, because ultimately, especially when you're dealing with people's money, you're giving people legal advice, there is the absolute need for trust. So instilling trust in the industry is something that we'll see continuously, as a focal point. And then I think with all industries we see, and in my mind it's a positive disruption, we see the likes of artificial intelligence, automation, tech-driven solutions. I really welcome that, because I think that there's an opportunity to solve problems faster. So we talk about efficiency, at the end of the day, you're still needing a human brain to make the decision. But if you can do things smarter, better, faster, that really impacts in a meaningful way your end client, then why not? So I think those are sort of two areas, if I had to pick two that's top of mind, they really stand out for me.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's something we talk about a lot as well. I think in the legal space especially, there's been a lot of frightened voices over the last 12 months, especially as AGI and AI has become more prominent. Some firms have really adopted it and embraced it. Internationally, I mean, I tell this story quite often, but internationally I've seen law firms developing their own artificial intelligence software for at least a decade.
Yeah.
Like, it's just new here. But it's the concern is well, no, let's take that back a step. The word that you just used there, or the words you just used there, were about more to an outcomes-based approach, and that is exactly it. I mean, I know I'm sort of simplifying it here, but one of the conversations I had with a lawyer that was concerned about how we're going to charge in future, revenues, etc., etc. I said, you know, I as a client will happily pay the same amount if I know that you're using all of the technology available and we're getting to it quicker and faster, and I can move on from that problem.
Yes.
I don't mind what I have to pay. But if you sit there and charge me for every email that I've sent you and I'm not interested in that. So you don't have to drop your fees. You just have to improve your service and focus less on how long it's taken and what the outcome is. And I think that is going to be, you're right, it's the biggest shift in the industry that the industry will have probably known maybe ever. That you know, they've been desperate. Certainly, we're focusing very much on the legal law firm industry, but they've been desperate for a very long time to move away from the hourly billing.
For sure.
And now they've got the chance.
For sure.
You know, and it doesn't mean that they have to make less money.
Yeah.
In fact, if they get it right, they'll make more. But it will be
Absolutely.
driving businesses forward quicker, faster. And when we had that GC Summit, the in-house summit, one of the things that kept shining through for me was that law firms, partners, enabling the businesses, that financial services or wherever it may be, to move quicker. The quicker we can move, accurately, obviously, within the regulatory framework, the quicker we can get on and to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And that excites me, and I'm sure it does you as well.
Absolutely, it
Yeah.
does.
And, okay, so I'm going to let you get on with your Friday. And, you know, our kids have got to go back to school next week.
Yes.
So let you get on and enjoy your weekend. But just in terms of you, I mean, you've given us a really inspiring journey. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to get a big kick out of listening to you and your journey and the way that you've shaped it. And yeah, there's trials and tribulations along the way, clearly. And but you've been very deliberate, and you are continuing to be, and you know, nothing's going to stand in your way. But you're not, and I don't mean that to sound aggressive. You're not like, it's just, you're having there's an element of fun there as well.
Yeah.
Clearly you and your husband and your family like to enjoy yourself as well as succeed. And I think that's a really lovely balance. But what's on the horizon for you personally as well? What is happening in your life, or what are you looking to do over the next few years?
Yeah, so definitely, I mean, Rob, if I reflect on just my life and my journey, you know, from doctors to teachers telling my parents she'll never have a normal life, to just where, you know, I've been able to take myself and my family and those, you know, that surround me. I think for me, ultimately, it's continuing to be the master of my own destiny. And for me, on a personal level, it's around continuously challenging myself, continuously evolving and upskilling myself so that I can best serve not only my community, my family, but just wherever I am, I want to make a positive and meaningful impact. Brilliant. And then to your point about fun, I'm an absolute fitness enthusiast. So for this side of 2024, definitely to compete in one event. I believe in, you know, I love strength training.
Have you booked the event yet?
I did. I pre-registered for one, which comes up in September.
Which is it?
So it's actually an international competition that's coming to South Africa for the first time. It's called High Rocks, and so yeah, very excited for that. But
So
I
you a
believe
personal challenge as well. Yeah.
yes, I believe that, like, I love strength training, so I think, strong body, strong mind, and obviously all the other health benefits. And yeah, to me, I find it fun and fulfilling.
Yeah.
So
Well, you're in
let's
the right
see.
place for it as well. Yeah.
Let's see what September holds. But yes, I have pre-registered to compete in that.
Brilliant. Oh no, I think it's interesting because I just as we end on that note, just adding that health and healthy body, healthy mind element to it is very important. So I did a training session recently, and I based it around the top 12 lessons that I've learned from professionals like yourself over the years that have come shining through as almost career tips. And I started with, this isn't one of the 12, but everybody I've seen succeed has looked after their mind. And that may start from looking after their fitness, which obviously, as we know, has a huge impact on on health. But the way I put it was, 80% of the professionals' success has come from their mental state, and that is, and everybody has challenges as we go
Yes.
go on, but it's come from being that healthy side of things. So look, I want to let you go, but thank you very much for joining us. Thanks for your journey, and thanks for all the information and chatting to me today.
Thanks very much, Rob. I really appreciate the time, and I think we definitely also share the passion about being the best parents that we can be. So enjoy the time with your kids leading up to term 2. And yeah,
They're getting so old. Yeah, brilliant. Thanks a lot.
and thanks for this chat.
Brilliant.
Cheers.
Excellent.